Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, it's the last day of Autodesk University 2018.
Talk about a whirlwind.
I'm tired.
No kidding.
Yeah, this guy's probably even more tired than we are, though.
I know. I just realized I was complaining about being tired, and the story that you're going to be telling us here, I imagine you were much more tired than we ever were.
So we're here with Dom Mirabile. Did I get that right?
Mirabile, but close enough.
You are the worst
I should have
pronouncer.
really checked that out.
Yeah, you should have.
If it makes you feel any better, it's kind of a running joke that I just pronounced everything wrong.
Incorrect.
So this just kind of lines up. All right, so you work for Deloitte Consulting, but that isn't really why we're here to talk to you. But before we get into why we're here, why don't you tell us what you do there?
Sure. So Deloitte is a large professional services firm. We do all types of services for clients. I work in our manufacturing and supply chain practice, so helping manufacturers solve business issues, improve their performance, etc.
Okay.
All right. So the reason that we actually have you here is because you decided on your own to go do this giant manufacturing world tour. You stopped at, what, almost 50 plus countries or cities throughout the world, checking out the different types of manufacturing, be it factories or startups or who knows what, just to get a better feel of how manufacturing goes throughout the world?
Yep, so I took some leave from work and spent 4 months circumnavigating the globe. I went west from Philadelphia and visited 21 countries, 50 cities, and 50 plus manufacturers.
And this was on your own, right? You said you took some personal leave to do this, so this was your wallet paying for most of this.
Yeah, it was, and it was something that I'm just really passionate about manufacturing, looking to build my career. But even before that, you know, I think I give a lot of credit to my parents. They raised me as an explorer, someone that's curious, and I wanted to follow that curiosity and see what life was like around the world and deepen my perspective of manufacturing around the world.
And how much of this world tour was with some either a partner or another coworker, or was this literally you had like a backpack on your back and you were like
this was solo, yeah. So packed my life in a 40-liter North Face backpack.
Nice.
And I headed west on an Amtrak train and just chased new sunsets every night going west.
So how many times, and did you know the route you were taking? Like you knew I was going to talk to this manufacturer on a Tuesday and then Friday I had something set up, or was it literally you were knocking on the door, hey, I'd like to talk to you about manufacturing? So what was that like?
Yeah, so it was an exercise in iterative planning. So I knew the general route just for visas and the big travel stuff. But I was planning basically 3 weeks out in advance. And it varied in terms of how much I would contact. Some manufacturers, they welcome you to factories to take public tours. Others, I just reached out and told them my story and was surprised that so many folks wanted to engage me and see what I saw elsewhere. So it was kind of this big networking effort and big planning effort, but that was part of the fun.
So clearly the best city that you stopped at was our hometown of
Burg.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you went to ARM, Advanced Robotics and Manufacturing. Could you tell us about what they do and what you learned? Yeah,
so first of all, manufacturing is such a big system, right? You have big OEMs, small suppliers, you have public-private research labs, solution providers. It's a big ecosystem, and I wanted to see a little bit of all of it. And ARM is really out there as kind of a public-private partnership trying to drive adoption of robotics in the industry. And there's lots of challenges when manufacturers want to adopt robotics, and ARM is kind of that honest broker to give them the best information, to help them test things and scale things. So I learned about kind of the work that they're doing there, and they're really fighting the good fight and helping manufacturers stay competitive in the U.S.
I wonder if ARM is a CMU spinoff or even part of Project Olympus.
I imagine it is, right?
It's related, yeah.
Because everything in Pittsburgh is related to CMU. That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's right. So could you tell me, I don't want you to pick a favorite, you don't want anyone's feelings to get hurt, but what were some of the highlight spots that you hit other than Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so I would just say the variety. So, I saw tiny component manufacturing in China. I went to Hyundai in Busan in Korea, and they're building the huge ships, like shipbuilding art. It's like probably the largest scale manufacturing you could see. Everything from textiles in Vietnam to automotive parts in Thailand to full-blown cars in Germany. I just saw such a variety. I would say the one of my favorite parts was just seeing how creative and kind of gritty manufacturers are all around the world. You'd see folks that, are customizing equipment or just being really creative every day and improving their operations. And that's one of the reasons why I love manufacturing, is that kind of spirit of continuous improvement.
Okay, so could you give me some of your top learnings that you can now bring back to either your work or maybe what you'll be doing in the future then?
Yeah, so lots of learnings and insights. I think the big one was just stepping inside the shoes of like a plant manager all around the world. What are their day-to-day realities? And I think there's a lot of excitement and spirit around the fourth industrial revolution and how technology is going to change manufacturing. And so I got to balance that hype with kind of the day-to-day realities. So I just have a better perspective on how hard it is to actually innovate on the shop floor. The other learnings I saw was, again, just creative examples of people doing things a little differently. So maybe instead of competing on cost or on quality, now folks are competing on speed. They're just trying to get products out to market quicker. So just little different takes on how manufacturers all around the world are thinking about the future and testing and trying new things out.
Okay, so one of the things that we hear a lot about is this industry 4.0, and I feel like it might be a tough sell sometimes whenever you're talking to the variety of manufacturers you're talking to. So first of all, could you give us, for those that might not know what Industry 4.0 is, give us kind of the high level what that is, and then how could that be applied to the various, like you said, small component manufacturers all the way to ship manufacturers? How does that apply to those types of industries?
Yeah, so Industry 4.0 is really a narrative that came out of Germany.
Okay.
To think about the next paradigm for manufacturing. And it's all about kind of the wholesale transformation of manufacturing through these end-to-end cyber-physical systems. So that's a lot of kind of buzzwordy things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know any of the words you just said.
That sounded like Autodesk was up on main stage right there.
Yeah. So I would say one way to think about it is a smart factory, increasingly smarter factory, where you're taking inputs, you're driving decisions, and you're changing physical processes. So there's that vision that's out there. But one thing to remember is manufacturing, these are capital-intensive businesses. They're not the quickest to innovate. It's really difficult. They're focused on production targets. So that narrative doesn't always resonate with folks. And what I found is that, in this period of there's a lot of change going on and there's a lot of excitement, meeting manufacturers where they are and talking to their specific pain points is much more effective at getting them to invest in the future or reach higher. So for some manufacturers, it may be about, instead of just making components, building their own brand. For other manufacturers, it might be about collaborating with other suppliers in the region, or selling things on the internet versus opening new channels. So it shouldn't be one story. There's a multitude of narratives out there to describe this period of time, and having awareness of that, I think, is really critical for manufacturers.
Okay. So you said, of course, it came out of Germany because, come on, Germany.
Yeah.
But do you see different countries adopting this more quickly, or perhaps they're just adopting it in different ways, like you were talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a huge focus for governments. Manufacturing is the bedrock of most economies, and definitely adopting it in different ways. And I see different flavors of it. So there's a huge focus on technology. How do you prove out these technologies and get them into the factory floor? But for instance, in Japan, they're really focused on human-centered factories. How do we harmonize man and machine? And you get kind of all these conversations around the future of work. In the U.S., I feel manufacturers are more focused on evolving like a business model, like how does this change your relationship with your customer? So there's different flavors of it, and I just feel so grateful to be able to see those different flavors of it kind of up close.
So this entire journey that you took, how long was it again?
A little over 4 months.
Okay, so 4 months. So could you give us an idea of kind of what the way you documented this trip? Was this video? Was it something you did after the fact? Was it vlogging or blogging, or like what was that documentation process like, and how intensive was just that documenting this journey?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, it was very tough because I felt like I was moving like a million miles a minute. So I took notes. I probably filled 4 or 5 full journals. I'm old school. I really documented the key findings after each conversation, every person I met, every conversation I've had. And now I have the task of trying to figure out how I produce that in some way. So, I've kicked around writing a short book, or maybe it's snippets that I, post in more mass media, but some way to kind of elevate or challenge the conversation around there. So it's not just one single story about Industry 4.0. It's putting kind of the people I met and the humans of global manufacturing more at the center.
Okay.
Every time we talk to one of these people, I just feel worse and worse
about
myself.
what you do and how you don't impact anything.
I was traveling for 4 months. I'm like, I'm beat. I've been in Vegas for 5 days. I'm going to go write a book. And I'm like, boy, I'm going to take a nap on the plane. This is crazy to me. I love it. Now, how did you end up getting hooked up with Autodesk then to get to Autodesk University for this story?
Yeah, sure. So, so much of this has been an exercise in networking, and that's my favorite part, is just connecting with folks and engaging them and having them give feedback. So at Deloitte, there's a group called the Center for the Edge, and it's basically a research group thinking about what's on the horizon. And I've got connected through those folks, and they connected me through Autodesk. So it's just people connecting people.
Okay.
And I told my story, and folks were saying that this would be kind of a great human interest kind of story. It's there's something that speaks to everyone about a big adventure. And so I was happy to come here and talk a little bit about that adventure.
Yeah, I imagine that if you take all these companies you visited, I imagine just your journey is interesting. Missing a train, or having issues getting into a country, and I imagine just the actual the trip itself was probably pretty amazing and could be a story in its own without all of the engineering and everything else involved.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time talking about that. I took 7 days traveling across Russia from Vladivostok to Moscow on the Trans-Siberian train. I took boats between Japan and Korea and Russia. So it was important for me not to take planes, right? The good stuff is in between the airports, right? You don't want to just be dropping in and out of cities.
So the majority of your travel was unless you had to cross
only the oceans.
Only the oceans.
Yeah.
Wow. He has some great pictures too. If you check out the story that he sent over, it is amazing, some of the images you have. So I was creeping on you before this. I wanted to get to know you a little bit. And I saw that you worked at the White House in your career. And I've also worked there. So,
I feel like you're lying about that.
I have not done that,
yeah,
but I'm very interested to hear what you were doing there.
Sure. So this was back in college. I was interested in kind of how public policy plays into all this, and so I applied as part of the internship program. Thought it'd be great to get a summer in the Obama White House, and this is interesting. I actually worked in it was a communications role in the Office of Presidential Correspondence, which is a fancy word for mail. And I got to be the person that was reading all of the stories coming in from everyday Americans to President Obama.
Oh,
wow.
And that was such a life-changing experience, to see life all around this country and to see kind of the political conversation on so many issues kind of flood into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So it was I don't want to overstate my role. This was an internship.
Sure.
But in terms of broadening my mind and showing me what life is like around this country, it was so powerful. And that kind of recognition of the power of stories also was a driver in me wanting to do this trip. How else would I meet or understand the stories of people in Germany or Japan or China or Russia without going there and shaking their hand myself?
And I always thought reading other people's mail was illegal.
Not when not when it's
well,
for
when
the
you
president.
get a lot of mail, you need some help.
I feel like this is another book for you to write, letters to the White House.
That's awesome.
That would be just wonderful.
Okay. So, last question.
Sure.
What would you say was the highlight of Autodesk University so far? And if there's anything else you got left today, there's not a whole bunch left today, what are you looking forward to, if there's anything?
Sure, yeah. So I would say the highlight has actually been the expo.
Really?
The keynotes are great, and they really kind of trigger lots of thoughts, and you start making connections, and that's great. But what I like is kind of the people-to-people stuff, and just walking around the expo and just seeing the level of passion for creating solutions for manufacturers, for builders. That's what's exciting to me. And it seems like everyone is really kind of reaching for that next level of performance, that next level of focus on user experience, and that's what I love about this. In terms of looking forward, I have my talk later today at 1:30, so I'll be talking a little bit about the trip, and just a few things that surprised me, how I'm trying to reframe some of the Industry 4.0 hype. So if folks are here and listening, I invite you to join me at the theater at 1:30.
Okay. And last question. I know I said that one was the last.
I feel like you're just keeping this going.
No, so I imagine you've seen all these manufacturing companies. Just wondering what your thoughts are on generative design, and because we've been talking about that a lot here, last year and a whole lot this year at Autodesk University. Just wondering, after seeing small to ships, how do you think generative design is going to potentially impact some of these manufacturers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the perennial issue in manufacturing is reconciling trade-offs between design and manufacturing. So you have a designer has a vision, but the manufacturer has kind of constraints.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see generative design, and it can do a lot of things, but the biggest thing that I see is a way to arbitrate that process where both sides provide inputs and then you can cycle through a number of potential options. And so that's a really powerful concept, and it would help every manufacturer, because that is kind of the slog of the design and manufacturing process that could be facilitated using the generative design. So really excited to see how that takes shape. Hopefully it will be really a democratized tool that is easy to use and very accessible to folks, because it could give us really big jumps in productivity and quality.
You just couldn't help but Autodesk it up, huh?
No, I just thinking of everything he has seen, how generative could be in that small component manufacturer all the way up to a shipbuilder, I think. Getting his insight on that, I think, was a good question. Just saying.
Okay. So we're going to be wrapping this up. I do want to know, do you have another trip planned?
No, I don't. I have a very supportive girlfriend. Her name is Kristen. And
Shout out to Kristen.
Shout out to Kristen. And I think she would be very upset, and I would be very upset to leave her again. So I'm keeping my feet on the ground for the foreseeable future. Okay.
Very good. All right, Dom. Well, thanks a lot for joining us here at Autodesk University 2018. This has been really interesting, and I need you to hit me up when the book comes out so that I can read it.
All right, will do. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye now.